Hey, comrades, what's up? Hope everyone's doing great. We're cruising through the main story of this, and they keep releasing it, so we're still like 5 months behind, or because I only do 2 story chapters a month, roughly. So before we get into, I think we're going into chapter 39 here, we need to cover and talk a little bit more about Raptilion. He's popped up here and there in the main story chapters that we've discussed, but he has like a rich history in like the side quests. So the side quests were an interesting thing they did for a while, but then they just completely dropped. And that was after you'd finish a level, you would get like requests through blah, 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 which is like Twitter, slash, a messaging app. I guess it's less of Twitter and it's more of like a WhatsApp or a Signal or one of these other things. So that, that's how you communicate. There's a lot of like kind of side story stuff that you can get in there. Like you can really dive deep, right? And I'm doing like a cursory analysis. Like I know I talk a lot about random shit with like Bond stories and events and all that stuff, but there's like a whole nother level that gets into stuff while you're in like maybe someday if I finish all the events, we'll get into in the outpost. There is like all these little like buildings you can go to, and they all have like stories with like different characters interacting in like different and new ways, and some of them can be sexual as well, or sensual, I should say, to be more accurate. And you can give you more insight on like some of these characters and stuff. Like this game is so fucking deep, y'all. Like there's like the fuck. So yeah. So that's that. And then these side stories, they have like a little bit of lore, and then there's like the shit you pick up on the ground during the story quests that I used to talk about, like the lost memories or whatever. And then I kind of stopped because they stopped coordinating with the levels for some reason. So like there'd be a whole line of like thought process in the lost memories. And then it would be split between like chapters like 4, 5, and 6, and they would like mix, and I just kind of like tapped out at some point because, again, at some point I like doing this, and I do it pretty much for myself, right? And I enjoy it, but at some level, I'm not doing deep analysis on this shit. If there's people out there for that, I would assume. I haven't seen them. I mostly listen to Go Gotcha, who like he's like the hype man for Nikke as far as I'm concerned, and I get gift codes, CD keys from him at this juncture because I refuse to interact with Discord because I don't need to. I'm an old man. I don't agree with their practices, or Reddit for the very same reason. Right. So that's where I go. YouTube is still like serviceable. And then there's Elzian, who is hilarious. So I watch his stuff, and then occasionally Pyric like moved on from Nikke at some point, so I don't really follow them anymore. They do like he does like a lot more deep dive story analysis playthroughs and stuff. So there's that. I would recommend all 3 of those channels. They're all fantastic. Much more production value than what I'm giving you here. This is, again, for me. And if you're along for the journey, I hope you're having a good time. And if not, don't waste your time. Go find something else to do. Okay, so Raptilion was a part of these side quests. There's like a whole bunch of different random characters, and sometimes Nikke's like Cinderella sent you on some side quests, and they're usually just kind of, it's more like the humorous side generally. They're more kind of like lighthearted, not as deep philosophical as the campaigns. Kind of more like some of the events, like the Biscuit event, where it's just like everyone's having a good time. Or like the Leona event, where it's like, hey, you want to go fuck like a tiger lady or a lion lady? And you're like, yeah, I would love to do that. And like, all right, let's do it. The end. It's like mission accomplished. All right, so Raptilion first pops up around chapter 4. I think it was after chapter 4. Like chapter 4, which should be chapter 4, then it unlocks some side quests through the blah, blah, blah. And it was this guy who introduces himself. And there was some confusion at the beginning because there was literally like in the same side quest, someone would refer to Raptilion as a woman, and then someone else would refer to him as a man. It didn't have voice lines. As of whenever he first showed up, in the newer chapters, he had voice lines, and he's a man. So he's an animal researcher from the Ark, and what he has discovered is that the Raptures on a base level function like animals, and so he crafted this like Rapture costume, which looks like a beat up old like VW bug with like some leg attachments and stuff. And then he just kind of like has been following and monitoring like rapture behavior and recording it. And he has like a blog and everything. So we first get introduced. After chapter 4, we get a message from him, and he introduced himself as an ML researcher who's up on the surface, and he's been studying raptures on the surface without returning to the Ark for like 4 years. Now, he has some sort of outpost he goes to where he like uploads blog information and whatnot. And he reaches out to us because we're on the surface, we're a commander, we seem like a nice guy and all that stuff. So it's like, hey, come check this out. And then chapter 4 is also kind of funny. While I'm speaking of Raptilion, Shift Up didn't at first have like a firm grasp on what they were like rolling with here. Like if you've been playing Nikke Goddess of Victory or paying attention to like the live game for the last year, or just me talking about it generally, you will know that the commander is a man who is like a self-insert character. Now in the first like 6 months to a year of like the game operating, I want to say, it was more ambiguous. Like they would refer to the commander as they, for example, because the implication was that if you're a woman playing this game, like all 17 of you, that then you could be self-represented too. And I would see like fan art with like female commanders being all into Anderson, right? And there's a lot more kind of like fan service for women back in the day with like Sexy Anderson or like, kind of some other stuff. It's still like heavily, for teenage boys, which God bless them. And then at some juncture, they were just like, fuck it. And you can like, you'll get official art that is like, that's where you get like the bangs over the guy's eyes, like the very Korean, like, JRPG protagonist kind of look, where it's like, this is supposed to be you, so we're not going to like do too much, but it's like clearly this is like a Korean man who's like fit as shit, right? Because it's a Korean game. So that helps with like the self-insert imaginations and whatnot. But yeah, that's some interesting lore. There you go. Okay. At some coordinates. Oh yeah, so he asks me to some coordinates, back to Raptilion. There we find raptures and we beat the shit out of them. And then one of them, it looks odd and is acting funny, so we're like, maybe we should not destroy that one. And we find out this is Raptilion, and we see his costume, and he talks about how he's making friends with raptures, but we scared them all away. Oh well, next time maybe we can all be friends. And so next time comes when Raptilion reaches out to us and is like, hey, I have a robot camo for you, so we can both go out there and I can teach you how to use it, and then we can try it out and be friends. And so we go out and we're in this thing, and he's teaching us how to like make rapture noises and how to like act like you're in self-repair. And then there's like a flashlight that you can like use that like helps with like making it look like you got a core. And then Raptilion like jokes about how it's like it's a workout, but like he can get it and he can like enjoy himself and hang out with these guys and stuff. And so we at some point we use like the noisemaker incorrectly, and we send out like a screech call which summons a bunch of raptures. So we beat them up, and then we bamboos. And then Raptilion later tells us that that we did a good job. Came at first, we need to keep at it. And that even though we made like a mistake, that we just got to keep up at it and keep practicing, and then we'll be able to communicate with the raptures, which will be super fun. And then so that's like part 2, and then part 3 essentially like it's like 7 or 8 parts. And these parts don't all take place after chapter 4. It'll be like chapter 4, then the next side quest will be like chapter 5, and the next one will be like chapter 6, for example. And so next time he reaches out to us, he's like, okay, I figured it out. I got a wired communication, because when you're around raptures, they release like the alpha particle situation, which can kind of disrupt communication wirelessly, which can cause a problem. So we got this wired connection, which is literally just like a tin can on the end of like a string that goes between the two of us, so that he can help us like not make another mistake, so that we can communicate without while we're trying. He can kind of coach us into how to like be better at pretending to be a rapture. All right, so we try that out, and it actually starts to work, and we're able to start figuring things out and everything, and Raptilion gets super excited. And so later on, Raptilion calls us, because right now the raptures, the raptures are hungry, and if they're hungry, they're a little more agitated or something. And so he's like, I'm going to reach out to you when they're like more chilling and just kind of repairing and having a good time. And so a bit later, he contacts out to us, and he's like, okay, I'm with a pack of raptures. I've been following. They're super chill because they've already eaten stuff. So we come meet him, and we leave like the counters a little bit off, and he starts introducing us to all his friends. And we meet Crab, Rapture, and Squid, which he calls Crab and Squid, because Crab kind of acts like a crab, and Squid kind of acts like a flying squid. And he talks about how like it's interesting because the raptures have like part of the reason they act like animals is because they take on these like kind of animalistic characteristics, which like when he calls him crab, the guy like crab walks and has claws and stuff. And like if you're playing the game, you can kind of like imagine who we're talking to, because there's a character that looks like that, and he might even be called Crab. I don't think so. I think he's called something else. Like it's like Brutus something. I don't remember exactly. But like the Raptures kind of have like animal-like forms, right? And we see that with some of the bigger ones too, like the Tyrants, right? Like the Stormbreaker. What's that guy's name? Like the flying guy, and then there's like stuff like that. Okay, so we talked to Crab Guy for a second. Everything's good. We talked to Squid. We're flashing the light like very slowly in like response to Squid. And so Squid starts to get kind of pissed off. And so we're like, okay, cool. Just let's Crab walk out of here before anything crazy happens. So we do that. And the Raptilion, again, congratulates us for doing good. And then this next time, we're going to go hit up like a higher tier Rapture. So a bit later, he reaches out to us again. And then we go out and meet him. And he introduces us to Sinister, who's like a Tyrant class. And Sinister is just taking a big old Bapopotamus. So we talk about the different classes of Raptures and how, because no one really studies them, he wrote about the different classes, like the Tyrant class and all that stuff. And that in his blog, and clearly, like after he wrote in his blog, like that's when the central government's like, hey, we've classified the Raptures into different types. And he's like, oh, they must have stolen that from me. That's funny. So, and then at some point, Sinister wakes up, and then he gets very agitated because our flashlight is apparently not working. And so we're like, oh, we're fucked. So the counters swoop in, kill his ass, and to save us. And then afterwards, Raptilion praises the girls, and then they get super arrogant, which is super funny because he's like, oh, you guys are so amazing, I can't believe you did this, it's so great. And Anise and Neon are like, yeah, we're the best, we're the firepower, blah blah blah. And Rappy's like, please stop, they're really taking it to their head. Afterwards, we chat more about his blog post and how the central government essentially steals info from him, right? This is where we get the information about the class system was stolen from his blog post because, he came up with it, but the government stole it. And all that stuff. And then we get like a break for a while. So then we don't hear anything from Raptilion. So I think this last section was around like chapter 8. And then for 8 more chapters, we just hear like nothing from Raptilion at all. But around chapter 16, we actually get contacted by Sayun. And Sayun needs us to go get a spy and like bring him in. And we're like, what do you mean a spy? And it's like, well, there's somebody out there writing information about Raptures on a blog post that anybody can see, and it's like top secret information, all this stuff. And we're like, oh, fucking Raptilion. And so we go find him, and he's surrounded by Raptures, which is like pretty normal. But something sings off. So we kill all the Raptures, and we find Raptilion is passed out in his suit. And so we go and drag him off to a safe place instead of taking him back to the Ark. We make sure that he's going to be okay, give him like water and food and stuff, and then we leave. And so when we get back, Sayun's like, where's the fucking spy? And we're like, go fuck yourself, we didn't do it. And she's like, you're taking too long, I'm going to send somebody else out to get him, which is Perilous Siege, of course. So like a chapter or two later, we get a call from Raptilion, and he's like, help, I need help. And so we rush to his location, we find Perilous Siege, they're already like on him, and it's like, okay, so we can't interfere directly with Perilous Siege because they're not doing anything wrong technically, and that's just going to stir up like a whole hornet's nest of things. And they can like attack me directly, while the counters can't really attack them because they're all allied, right? And the nymph and all that stuff. And so we're like, okay, what can we do? And it's like, okay, so I climb in like the raptor camo, which I brought along for some reason, and we use like we like summon a bunch of Raptures, which include his friends. And so Crab and Squid and like the whole crew of like homies that like Raptilion usually hangs out with, they come storming in. Perilous Siege has to like fight with them, and in the melee, Crab grabs Raptilion and they peace off. And then as Perilous Siege is like, oh fuck, we gotta go get this guy, it's our job, a huge mother whale like comes from the sky. And we've already met this mother whale too. So she shows up and picks up all the Raptures with Raptilion. And as they're going up, one of the, I think Rappy mentions like, oh hey, look, the Raptures are all treating Raptilion very well, even though you can see him through the costume. So clearly the costume's kind of torn up or broken, but the Raptures don't seem to care. Maybe they're actually like truly friends and whatnot. And so a bit later on, after this event, Raptilion reaches out to us, and he tells us that he's doing fine, and that the Raptures have become his actual friend. Like he doesn't even need to wear the Raptor camo anymore. He still does because it's like more comfortable at this juncture because he's been doing it for so long. But that the like Crab and Squid and Mother Whale and all that stuff, that they're engaging with him regardless of him being in like the costume or not. And so it's like, hey, I've made great strides in like unification and like helping us be, not being at peace with the Raptures instead of like being enemies all the time. And this is great stuff. And this whole message thing, it's like he's reaching out to us, but he's like in the sky on a mother whale, and he is not able to receive our communication. So he's just like kind of talking, and he's like, oh, let me just tell you this wonderful stuff that we're gonna do. Let's see. Yes, they don't care that he's human. Likely because, okay. And he's very excited to see what this like combination of like being friends with Raptures and the human Rapture friendship is going to lead to, and he's going to see how that goes, and someday he'll reach out to us again, and we'll be able to see him again, and he hopes that we'll do well and that everything will work out and we can all be friends. Right. So that's the story of Raptilion up to, I'm pretty sure it's chapter 39, which is we're going to talk about next week. So now you're all caught up on the Raptilion lore. And so go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and we'll catch you guys later.